Okay, boys, welcome back to game number 2 of the World Chess Championship between Liren of China and Nepo of Russia. If you guys saw game 1, you saw it was a really interesting draw, but this is game 2, and it is totally different. This game had a decisive result. Nepo managed to win his first game in a World Chess Championship ever, and it was just crazy and chaotic right from the beginning. On move 4, we had a move that's never been seen before in Grandmaster level play. This game had ups and downs. We had piece sacrifices, checkmating attacks, all sorts of pressure against White's king, the center versus the flanks. So if you like exciting chess, if you like dynamic chess, then this is definitely a game that you want to watch. Okay, guys, so without further delay, we're just going to jump right into it. In this position, Liren starts out with d4, Jan follows with knight f6, Ding plays c4, e6, and knight f3. So right off the bat, we have an anti-Nimzo Indian. Normally, white would play knight c3, black would respond with bishop b4, and this is a Nimzo. So by playing knight f3, white is saying that he does not want to play a Nimzo Indian. So Jan counters with d5, and here it's very normal that Ding usually plays g3, and puts his bishop on g2, and then goes into some sort of a Catalan structure like this. But in this game, Ding had something completely new set up. He played the move h3. This move is so rare that it has actually been seen a total of 0 times, 0, in Grandmaster games, okay? And that's typically because it does not control the center, it does not develop a piece, it's really just a weird sort of flank move. So definitely with this move, I think Liren surprised Jan Nepomniachtchi. He did not know what was going to happen here, but Jan actually made a really interesting decision. He chose to do this, okay, which is a Queen's Gambit accepted. And I understand why he did. Normally, when you do this type of a move, you will eventually lose a tempo, but maybe gain a pawn. So I think Black's idea was, look, if you're going to waste a turn doing this, then I might as well grab this pawn and not waste that turn that I would normally waste, because now we're playing a Queen's Gambit accepted, except that there's this ridiculous pawn here that doesn't do anything. Yes, maybe in the long term, this can prevent bishop g4 or something, and typically I'll play h3 myself, but much later, not this early. Okay, so takes on c4, e3, going after this pawn, but closing in his bishop. c5, saying, look, I'm just going to exchange this and free my pieces really quickly. Bishop takes c4, a6. Okay, so a6 is a really interesting move. The idea is we want to play b5 as black. So say you do something like castles, which is actually what happened. We're going to play b5. We attack this bishop. We gain a little bit of time because the bishop has to move, which is what happened. And then after this, we will put the bishop on b7. Okay, and the idea is if we played b5 and this bishop was back on e2 or d3, it would be white's turn. So black intends on gaining 1 tempo. But first, black plays knight c6, knight c3, b5, again, winning that tempo that we just talked about, and then bishop d3. And this is actually really interesting. So it was clear here that Liren had prepared this and that Jan did not. And you can tell because right now Ding has only used 8 minutes. Most of those were just him in the restroom. And Jan has used about 26 minutes. Okay? This position is very complicated because black can play c4, kicking the bishop. Black can play b4, kicking the knight. He can do both. He can take. So it's not so obvious what black wants to play here, or white. But again, if Ding prepared this at home, then he has an advantage. Okay, so Jan plays bishop to b7, a4. So the idea here is we want to poke at these pawns, break them up, and maybe make a weakness. So b4. So first of all, as you can see, there's a hole on c4 now. Okay, so maybe at some point a knight can go into c4 or something, but a hole has been created. Okay, knight e4, going into the center. And here Jan plays a really, really good move and a really interesting move. He plays knight a5. Okay, it's very counterintuitive, because you move a knight away from the center and you don't develop a piece. But there's a lot of really interesting and fine points, right? So first of all, the bishop and the knight are now going to attack e4, okay, which puts some pressure on white. White also is going to have to move a piece twice. But perhaps more interesting is that it really controls some of these squares, right? So say you have a situation like this, and the queen takes, and you play some silly move like this. Now what's going to happen is black is going to play c4. He's going to attack this bishop. The bishop's going to go to c2, and maybe not necessarily right away, but maybe it's possible that black at some point will play b3. The bishop will be forced back to b1, and if you look, this rook is kind of temporarily trapped, right? So it's possible with the knight here, black is going to have a little bit of pressure, a little bit of defense, plus it blocks this pawn. That's not exactly how the game panned out. But okay, so at this point, Ding plays knight takes f6, and everyone here thought this was a little bit of an inaccuracy. It's not the end of the world, but I think that knight takes c5, and most people think knight takes c5 was better. So in this position, Ding would win a pawn, black would recapture, white would recapture. You're going to have a situation now where white is up a pawn. This pawn, however, is weak, so eventually it's going to fall. Black will castle, play rook c8. I mean, he's going to get that pawn back. But this is very solid. This is the way that Ding sort of likes to play. I think this would have given him maybe a slight advantage. Maybe you can play knight d7 and just go after this pawn here. But Jan played a really Jan-style move, right? So in this position, he didn't take... well, first of all, Ding played knight takes f6. And instead of playing queen takes f6, which is a solid move, sort of keeping your position together, Jan plays this move, and it's actually much better. G takes f6. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, this is weird. Again, you're splitting your pawns, you're weakening your structure. But what's going to happen here is that Jan is going to put his rook on g8. Okay, and if you look, this rook is going to aim all the way down at white's king, and also this bishop is aiming down this diagonal to white's king. And what's at the end of the rainbow here is a very strong coordinated attack. Okay, so we're going to have a situation where, okay, black has some weak pawns, but white's king is going to come under a tremendous amount of pressure. So Ding plays e4, just trying to close this bishop up a little bit, and c4. So with this move, Jan throws down the gauntlet, right? What Jan said is, look, I have a 3-on-2 majority on the queen side. You're going to use your 2 on this one majority in the center. You're going to try and crack open my king, and let's see what's going to happen, right? I'm going to smush you here. You're going to smush me here. Let's see how this pans out. So first of all, bishop c2. Again, it's possible to play b3. I don't think that that's the right idea because we're going to be able to come here and come out. But this is, always a move that's lurking to sort of smush white at the right moment. So Jan plays a really, really good move, which is queen c7. So first of all, queen c7 is going to prevent this bishop from developing to f4. It is defending the pawn on c4. And also, it's getting out of the way so black can castle, and this rook can put pressure on d4, right? So it's just a really, really nice move. It does a lot of things, and it keeps these pawns here so that they cover all the squares, and now every move Ding has to worry about, is it going to be b3? Is it going to be c3? Is he going to leave it there? There's just a lot of tension. Okay, bishop d2, developing, trying to target this pawn. It's already defended, but nevertheless, a decent move. So here Jan makes a slight inaccuracy. He plays rook g8. It's sort of debatable. I mean, some engines like it, some engines don't like it. I think, and I think a lot of other commentators think that Castle's queenside was slightly better, just because you put pressure on d4 and you can play rook g8 anyway. But nevertheless, rook g8 is a good move. We're just starting to line up here. Okay, rook c1. So I understand what the point of this was. Queen e1, I think, was better, just putting some pressure on b4 right away. But the idea behind rook c1 is very simple. First of all, if you play b3, I'm going to play bishop b1, and white is actually totally winning. If you look at the evaluation bar, it's about +4. So this rook is not trapped in the corner anymore. This knight is under pressure. If you castle, we're going to have queen e1. We're going to go after this knight. You're going to have to move the knight back. Queen e3. And as you can see, we're not actually all that stuck anymore, right? These pawns are, there's just holes, and we're going to go right around them. Okay, so for that reason, let's see, after here, castles, that was his idea. But the issue is Jan does not have to play b3. Jan is going to castle queenside, and it looks a little bit difficult because the rook is in line with this king now, but there's not really a way for white to open this up. And in the interim, the rook is still putting pressure on d4. So here, Ding plays a really interesting move, bishop d3. So the idea is actually pretty simple. You can't take this, because if you take this, I'm just going to take your queen. Okay, but if you can't take it and I play here, now I actually have two attackers here. You have two defenders here. And I'm at least sort of moving forward, and I'm trying to sort of put pressure. We'll see later that Ding's idea was to play rook e1 and bring this bishop back to f1 to defend against Jan's pressure. It doesn't quite work out that way, but it's at least an idea. So here, Jan very sensibly plays king b8. The idea is I am not in line with this rook anymore. We're at least getting that one piece out of the way. Okay, rook e1, f5. Okay, so f5 is a very, very, very good move. Okay, it does a lot of things. First of all, we are trying to pry open this diagonal. If you play e5, you are just completely losing. Okay, e5 or e takes, or e takes f5 are met with the same idea. We can play rook takes d4, and you cannot take this rook. If you take the rook, what's going to happen is you actually get checkmated, right? So it's rook takes g2, king f1, rook takes f2, king takes f2, queen h2, and then no matter what you do, you get checkmated. If king f1, queen g2 is mate, and if king e3, then bishop h6 is mate, okay? So it's really, really interesting, the situation that we have here. But if you can't push this pawn and you can't take this pawn, then that means we're just putting a lot of pressure, and we are going to rip that diagonal open and get at your king. So in this position, Ding has to make a move, and he finds this move, which is bishop c2. But if you remember, this bishop came from c2. So he's wasting time. I mean, he played bishop d3, bishop back to c2 because he was forced. Meanwhile, Jan is just continuing his attack. So the engine already thinks that Jan is winning. Okay, he still has to find some accurate moves, but he's still winning. So here, Jan plays a crazy good move. He plays knight c6. Okay, so notice before, say that the position was like this, and say that you tried to play knight c6. I'm just going to make some sort of a nothing move here, say king f1. You cannot play knight c6 because there is double attack. So I'll just take this with the rook, and you will lose the pawn. But now he played bishop c2. So because he played bishop c2, this is not double attacked. It's not even singularly attacked. So because of that, Jan takes advantage to get his knight off of the corner and start heading this way, maybe not to e5, but to start heading this way over towards the white king. Okay, so now bishop g5. Okay, and this was a really, really star moment. So at this point, Jan plays the best move and realizes he can actually sacrifice the exchange here. He takes that bishop and sacrifices his rook. Okay, this is a little bit counterintuitive because, as we know, rooks are worth 5, bishops are worth 3. Okay, but the idea is, first of all, we take this, white takes this, but now we have this amazing move, knight takes d4. So first of all, we get a bishop and a pawn, so it's only a small sort of sacrifice. But second of all, look at what's going on now. This bishop is open. This knight is in your face. It's threatening this bishop. It's threatening discovery checks. This rook is in line with the queen now. Maybe at some point we can kick the knight away. There's just so much pressure and so much tactics everywhere that it's going to be impossible to defend. So Ding tries queen h5. Okay, and in this position, he's attacking h7, he's attacking f7, he's getting out of line with the rook. And here, Jan missed a really interesting opportunity that GM Narodinsky saw. So the move that he missed here was bishop c5 with a crazy, crazy, crazy tactic. So if you play queen takes f7, okay, this is a blunder because now out of nowhere there's knight f3. Okay, and if you play knight takes f3, well then your queen is hanging. And if you play g takes f3, then here comes the pain with queen g3, and you cannot take this queen because of the pin. You can't play king f1 because you're going to get mated. So instead, you're going to have to play king h1. It's the only move. But then we retake this knight. Okay, rook d1, rook d2, takes, and your whole position is falling apart. I mean, these two bishops are just skewering your king. Your king has no defense. This queen hits this pawn, hits this rook, hits this bishop. My king is going to be totally safe on a8 or a7, and what's going to happen is your king is just going to get crushed. Okay, so what actually ends up happening is Jan plays a good move, not necessarily this combination, but he plays instead f6, which is totally sensible. He just kicks this knight away. And this comes with a lethal trap, and it's one that spells the end for Ding because he walks into it. So in this position, Ding had to take this pawn. It's still losing, but at least he has a chance. Here, he plays knight f3, and it's just over now, right? The whole position falls apart. So first of all, we take this bishop on c2. You have to take back, otherwise you're down a piece, and then bishop takes e4. So first of all, we win another pawn. Okay, we attack this rook, we attack this knight, we block this rook. This bishop is a monster. It attacks the king, it attacks the queen side. We're going to promote these pawns, we control the file. There's just no way for Ding to fight back. Okay. In addition, Ding does not really have any time. He only has 15 minutes left, and Jan still has 43. So here he plays rook d2, and again, bishop d6, an excellent move with a trap, right? So say that you make some sort of, a silly move like rook a1, it's just over because we're going to take, you're going to have to recapture, check, king g2, and then your rook is hanging. Right, and it's the same thing if you play captures with the queen. Again, it's just check, you move over here, we take the rook. Okay, you can play g3 to try and trap my bishop, but I'm just going to take it, f takes g3. And in the resulting position, black is just up a million pawns, and these pawns are going to queen, and there's just nothing that white can do. Okay, so instead, he plays king h1, and the idea is now there's no check. But it's just over. There's no way to stop this pawn from queening, right? So we play c3, attacking the rook, trying to make a queen, takes, rook here, c2, the bishop just defends. There's nothing you can do. This bishop is going to come to a3, it's going to guard the square, the queen is already guarding the square, there's rook c8. You cannot stop this pawn from queening. In addition, it's defended by this bishop, so you're never going to take it either. So here, Ding has to try something. As you see, he only has 46 seconds. So he's trying to defend, but it doesn't even matter because Jan plays e5, and now the rook is just trapped. Okay, the rook is just totally trapped. There is nothing that he can do. Right, if you take this bishop, we just take this back. If you go here, we take your rook. If you play rook d2, you're actually blocking the queen from covering c1, so we can just make our own queen. Rook here, we take the rook, and rook here, we take the rook, and rook here, we again can just take this rook. Okay, so in this position, the rook is trapped, and there is just nothing. There's just nothing that he can do. So in this position, Ding Liren resigns. Okay, so what an absolutely crazy game. I mean, this game was just wild. There was piece sacrifice. There was an attack on a king. Props to Nepo for winning a world championship game. This is his first game. He did not manage to win any of his games against Magnus. Props to Ding for coming up with a super unique move that's never before been seen in Master Chess, and for creating all of these problems for his opponents. But with this game being over, the score is now 1.5 for Nepo and half for Ding. There's still a long way to go, but as of now, Nepo is winning, and what a crazy game, and hopefully we'll have some more following up, and can't wait to see you guys for Game 3.